Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go and I'm just going to show you the images that I'm going to use for the whole website. So I same time I'm going to get the logo. So let me minimize these and just minimize these and just go to our folder. So remember that we were storing everything in our HTML folder. So I'm going to open that folder and I'm going to go into images, and we can see here in images that I have an array of different images that we're going to use here. And you'll notice that these images are the same images that we're seeing on the website. Okay, so you have the waterfall, we have the guys surfing. At the very top here we have three logos. Okay, so these are three logos that I was just playing with, just in deciding which one I was going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use this one here. Okay, and this is going to be different to what we see here on the page. Okay, so you can see here that I used the blue one originally, but this time I'm going to use the yellow one here. Okay. Okay, so these are our images, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. So remember that what we do is that what we want to do is that when we want to use an image in our website, we have to copy the name of the image, and we have to note the type of image it is. Okay, so I'm going to copy the name here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. Okay, I'm going to change this to travel logo, just to make sure that it's a little easier to pick up, the name. Okay, so there it is, travel logo. And I know now what I have to use in my code to link this. Okay, so it's travel logo and it's a PNG file, so .png. So I'm going to come back here. Let me bring back up the site in the background so we can see what's going on. Make sure that we have our structure there. Okay, so I'm going to call this travel logo .png. So that's my logo, and I'm just going to finish off this div now. So slash div. Good. So that is going to take up one side of our header here, and then the other side is dedicated to the links and to this icon. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is that I'm going to put div, so opening div tag again, so div id is equals to links. Good. And then for my links, what it is, I put them in an unordered list. So we do an unordered list, if you remember, by putting the opening UL tag, and then we have list items. Okay, and in this case what I have to do is I have to wrap the list items in an A tag. And remember that A tags allow us to link. Okay, so that's why when I take my cursor and I hover over these links, it recognizes them as links and not as normal text. Okay, like here you have normal text, here you have your link here. Okay, and we do that by wrapping in A href is equals to, and that will be our link, okay, to wherever we're linking to. But in this case I'm not going to link to anything. I'm just going to put the hashtag just as a placeholder. Okay, and then I'll put class is equals to text bold. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this particular website is that I'm going to have different classes that can be used to apply a certain style to a collection of elements. Okay, so there are many elements in this particular website that share the same type of styling. So if we look here, we can see that the text has different areas and different styling. Okay, so we can see that this text here is a bit bolder and larger compared to this other type here. We have a particular styling for our headings, and if I go down some more, we can see that the text here is very similar to the text here, and that's because they're both using the same class. Okay, so I'm using classes to kind of match this styling across different sections of the website to different elements. Okay, so we have the paragraph here, and the paragraph has the same class styling that this one here has. Okay, so I'm going to come back here and just keep that in mind. So whenever you see these classes, that's what's going on. I'm just using classes to link styling to different elements on the website. So I'm going to close that now and then put the list element. So LA home /LA closing tag for the list element. and then closing a tag. Okay, I just have to repeat that again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this line. Oops, tap twice. I'm going to come to this next one. I'm going to paste. Okay, so right click and then paste. So now I just have to change the text inside. So I'm just changing text here so that it comes up different. So here I have it as sample. See, sample. So I'm going to put sample. And then I'm going to close off the unordered list tag. So because I only have 2 elements there, so I just need 2 list items. So /ul to close that. And then finally we also have an icon next to that. Okay, so I'm going to put span class is equals to iconify, and then data dash icon is equals to fa semicolon search data dash inline is equals to false, and then span. Okay, and remember that this is the code that I would have taken from the website that I'm pulling these icons from. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to close this div /div, and then I'm going to close the header div. Oh, I missed a double quotation here for iconify, so I'm just going to put the double quotation in. Good. So good. So we have our header here. So we have our opening div for our opening tag for our header here, and then we have 2 divs inside. Okay, we have one dedicated for the logo, so we separate it into 2. So we have one for the logo, and then the other side now we are dedicating to our links and to our icon here with our magnifying glass. Okay, so now I just have to close the header div. Oh, I already closed it previously. Good. So we have the first part of our website prepared here. We have the structure, but now we have to do some styling to it. Okay, so we are ready now to save this and then try to adjust the styling for our header here. So I'm going to come to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this Travel Site. Okay, and just make sure, again, like before, we're just going to make sure that it's being saved to the correct location. We're going to save this back in our HTML folder, and I'll call this travel site.html, and the type, you can put the type as hypertext markup language here. If you do that though, just make sure that you always have the suffix here. Okay, you always need to make sure that your file is identified as it should be with the suffix. So travel site.html is going to the right location. The type is okay. Good. So we can save. Good. And you can see now that the editor now recognizes that it's an HTML file. So that's good. Everything looks all right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start dealing with the styling. So to do that, as before, we will open up a new tab, and this is where we're going to do our styling. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is that I want to strip all of the margins, all of the default margins and paddings out of my body, so that I can position things how I want it to be positioned. Because remember that before, when we were dealing with margins and paddings, we had kind of discussed that by default, when you do an HTML file, it tends to have a default margin, well, a default padding there to kind of keep the elements away from the edges of the web page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip that out. I want to have full control over how everything is displayed. So I'm going to put margin 0px. I'm going to put padding 0px just to make sure there's nothing that is going to alter how I want things to be displayed. And then what I'm going to do below that is that I'm going to declare all of the classes that I'm going to use in this website. So I have a class for the headings. So I have 2 classes for headings. I have a heading white class and a heading black class, because if you look here, you can see that there's white headings like that one, and there's also black headings like that one, okay? And I'm just going to use a class so that whenever I put in a heading, I just have to refer to the class and get the styling, okay? So I'm going to put heading white, and then the styling for this is that obviously since it's a heading white, I'm going to put the color as white. I'm going to put the font dash family as Oswald, Helvetica, Arial, Lucida, sans serif. I'm going to put the font size as 100 pixels, the margin as 0 pixels, and the text alignment to be central. Good. So that is my styling for my white headings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to repeat this for my black headings. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the color white, because by default it's going to give me a dark color, okay? So I don't need that to be there. And in this case, I do not want the text alignment to be central. In some cases, the black headings don't have a central heading, and well, a central positioning, sorry. I'm going to obviously have to change this to be heading black. Good, that has to change. And I'm going to change the font from Oswald to Roboto. Good. I'm going to change the font size also from 100 to 60 pixels. And I'm also going to take out the margin, and I'm going to change that to a font weight of bold. Good. Okay, so that is my class for headings, for the black headings, and above that for the white headings. And then I have two classes here for the buttons. So I have a light button class and a dark button class. So the light one is .light button. You're going to give it a transparent background, and to do that we're going to put background RGBA 0 0 0 0, and that gives it a transparent background. So it's just going to be an outline, and you'll see what I mean. I want the color on this, since it's the light button, to be white. I want to give it a border that is, oops, border. I want this to have a border of 5 pixels, solid and white. I want to give it some padding of 10 pixels. Let me just pull this up so you can see it a little better. Good. I want the font size to be 20 pixels, and the font family will be the same font family that I have used for my white headings. So I'm just going to copy that, Control C. I had already started typing in font family, but I could just take this out, put in this. Good. So that's the same font family that I've been using, that I'm going to use for my white headings. Good. I want the font weight to be bold. And finally, I want to give it some letter spacing. So letter spacing of 5 pixels. Okay. Good. So that's my light button, and I want to pretty much copy most of this styling for my dark button as well. Okay, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this. So this time it will be dark button instead of a light button. So dark button. And again, I want it to have a transparent background, and I achieved that through using this code. I want the color now to be black in this case, so black. I want the border to have a black border, so I'm going to change that to black as well. But otherwise, it's going to have the same styling, okay? Now, I just have to start dealing with my text now. So I have my headings, I have my buttons, and I want my text. So I want text normal. So this is the normal text that we have. And I'm going to give it a font family of Roboto. This is the same Roboto code that we would have had above. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here, okay? Good. So we have our Roboto font family. Then I want the font size of this to be 20 pixels. I want the font weight to be bold. And I want the letter spacing to be 2 pixels, okay? Good. And I'm going to copy that. No, sorry. That's the code for my bold text, sorry. So that's text bold. Whereas text normal, let me put in some here for text normal. So text normal now, it has the same font family, but it has a couple of changes. So let me copy the Roboto font family. Copy. Let me just put in my brackets. Good. So it has the same font family, but it has some differences in terms of the font size, which in this case is 18 pixels. And also, the line height is different. So the line height in this case is 20 pixels. Good. Okay. So that is our text. So finally, we have a class for these lines that you see, okay? So these dividing lines that occur for emphasis at certain points of the website. We need a class for that as well. So I'm going to put that in now. So I'm going to come back. And I'm going to call this dot line, because that's essentially what it is. It's a line, not line height, dot line. Good. So the width of these is going to be 200 pixels. You're going to have some padding at the bottom of 1 pixel. Just to, if I don't put in this padding, it doesn't come up. So I just put this in just to have it come up. And it can also work as a divider that's adjustable, okay? So if you wanted to, you could actually use these lines to divide different sections of the website with spacing that is variable, okay? You can increase and decrease the spacing, and it gives a nice effect, okay? And then it's going to have a border at the bottom of 5 pixels, solid, and orange, okay? And you can see here that it has the orange color here. Good. So good. We have our classes that we're going to use throughout this website. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use the grid, the CSS grid technique that we've been covering before, on the container itself, the container of our divs, to kind of give them a particular layout. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, put container, display grid. I'm going to put it to have one column. Remember, we use grid dash template dash columns, and we use this to kind of set how many columns our website is going to have. So in this case, I'm just going to have one column, so 1fr. The real variable thing here is the rows, right? Because we have multiple rows. So if we look here, we got 1, 2, and so on, all the way down. All right, so all of our divs are going to be on one row. So I'm going to put grid-template row rows. Sorry, I'm going to put it at 76. So I would have evaluated the spacing for these rows beforehand. Okay. Remember that one way we can do that is that we can use the inspect feature. So if I right click, inspect, and I just pull this aside so you can see, we can see here that we're given the sizing of elements here. So you can see here that you have div header. So it's saying that this is the div and it's called header, and it has a width of 1519 by 76. Okay, so I know that the height of that row is 76 pixels. If I go to the next section, I have 649 pixels in height, and I can keep doing this all the way down the page. Okay, for this one we have 1500 pixels, and that's how I was able to determine these values. Okay, just by using inspect and hovering over the different sections and picking up the sizing from here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to where I was doing the CSS, and I have to do this for 9 rows. Okay, because remember we have 9 divs. So the first one is 76, the next one is 649 pixels, the next one is 1500 pixels, then 1400 pixels, 1260, 878, 714, 733, and finally 76 again. Okay, because the header and the footer have the same height. Okay, so let's count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we have our 9 divs, and this is going to lay them out as we want in terms of the spacing. Okay, and then finally I want no grid gap, so I'm going to put a grid gap of 0 pixels. Okay, 0 pixels. Good. Okay, so that's our container. So that sets up our divs with the kind of vertical spacing that we want. Okay, so that sets the heights for our divs. Okay, and then now I can look at dealing with the header, and as I was just making sure that I set all these other things before I get the header, because we need to set the page up. Okay, good. So header, and remember that that's what we did first. If we come back here to the HTML, remember that this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with this first div, the header. So I'm going to put hashtag header. And what I'm going to do with the header is that I'm going to put this to display as grid again. So display grid. Let me scroll up here to the header so we can see. So display grid. And I'm going to split this into 2 columns. Okay, so I'm going to put grid dash template dash columns, and I want 2 columns. I want one that is 200 pixels wide, and then I want the other one to just take up the rest of the space. So I'm just going to put 1fr. Good. So we can see this in action. So if I inspect here, so let me inspect. And let me pull this aside. And if we look here, we can see, if you look closely to the right of the logo, you can see that there's a line indicating that the header has been split into 2 sections. Okay, so the logo is separated into this 200 pixel wide section here on the left, and the rest is dedicated for our links and our icon. Okay, so you can see there how we have divided it there. Okay, so let me close this and come back here. So good, so that's what's happening here. That's what I'm doing here. So 200 pixels for the logo here, and then the rest is for our links and our icon. Okay, good. So that's the first part we're dealing with. And then what I did is that I then called the div that I used for the logo. So that would be hashtag logo. And I displayed this as grid again, because displaying as grid and then using these commands really makes things a lot easier. But there's different ways you could do these things, okay? You don't have to necessarily do them in the way that I did them, but I just chose to do them a certain way because I find them easier to do that way. So grid dash template columns. Oh no, sorry. I displayed the logo as grid and then I justified it to the center. So justify items to center. Good. So good. So that is just to center the logo here within this div. And then finally, I'm going to look at dealing with the links here, okay? So what I did then is that I called links. So this is the div links. And then I displayed grid again. Then I did grid template rows, grid dash template rows, 1fr, and grid template columns as auto and 100 pixels, okay? And I also aligned the items to the center, and I justified the content to the center. Then I gave them a grid gap of 40 pixels to give them some separation, and I also gave them a margin to the left of 500 pixels. Good. Okay. And then there's just two more changes I have to make to achieve this result, okay? So one is to display the list items inline as inline elements. So display inline, and that's for the list elements, that's for our links. And also for our A tag, I gave it a text decoration of none, because remember that these are list items, and a list style type of none. And finally, a margin on the left and on the right. So 0, 20 pixels, 0, 20 pixels. Good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this and I'm going to check this out. And then I'm just going to look at what we're doing here, okay? Alright, everything looks good. So file, save as, and then I'm going to save this, I'm going to save it to the CSS folder. I'm going to save it as travel style because remember that that is the name that I chose just now. So travel style is in the right folder, and I'm going to make it a cascading style sheet. Good. So travel style.css, make sure you put the suffix or extension and save. Good. Okay. And it's now recognizing it as a style sheet. Good. Okay. Oh, one other thing that I did not do here is that I should have, with the logo, I should have set the height. So I'm just going to add a height here for my logo, just to keep it contained. So header image, and I'll put the height at 76 pixels. Good. Okay. So now I can save, and let me see, this was saved also. Good. So let's try opening this, and hopefully we won't have any errors, but we'll see. So I minimize this, minimize this. I'm going to try opening the file. So that would be travel site. So I can open this with Chrome. Okay, so what we can see here is that the links have loaded in, right? So I got home here, and I've got sample, 2 links, and they're oriented how I want this to be oriented, but the icon and the image are not coming up. And I believe that the reason for that, well, at least I know that the reason for that with the icon is that I wasn't connected at that point in time to the internet, but I am now. So if I refresh, you can see that the icon comes in, okay? But here, with the image, I believe that the issue with that is that I did not remember to put the right path, and that is the issue, yes. So you have to put images / travel logo.png, and if I save this and refresh it, it's going to work. Okay. So I have my logo in, and I have my links and my icon working. And they're all oriented how I want it to be oriented as a row on top, okay? And that's my header. Okay, one last thing I have to do is I have to change the background of the header to be the same color as the background of my logo, okay? So all I have to do now for that is I just have to come back to the style sheet, and I just have to put background dash color, and the specific color in this case is E7, 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 semicolon, save, refresh, and good. So now you can see that my icon is appearing as it should, okay? It's not, you can't see a conflict between the background of my icon and the background of the header, okay? Which is what I want.